Welcome to Tiny Little Victories. You are listening to season three of Tiny Little Victories. And you know what? You guys have made that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's just a nice small room tonight. Thank you. You guys have made that happen, season three. So I am eternally grateful for everybody listening, everybody coming back. You guys could actually be better sharers. So today's thing to do is to maybe share a little more. I think that would be great. Sharing is caring. So enough with those dumb jokes. We are today going to talk to someone who is an entrepreneur, an explorer, and an environmentalist. His name is John Hazelwood, and I met him about 10 years ago in Barcelona at an event that was held there where everybody that was involved in the tech startup world would show up and drink too many drinks and go to events the next day with Coke and like Twix bars in their hands and be hungover and do the whole thing again to the next day. It was a very long time ago when we didn't know any better. But I did meet him there, and he, at that time, was living in Bulgaria. And John has a very interesting background, and his story reads like a Graham Greene novel. So we're going to take a tiny pivot today when I talk to John about his past and his family. It's multicultural. He comes from Greece. He has lived in Bulgaria. He has traveled around the world, and he has been a research analyst. He had a startup in Bulgaria, and he has a new company that's environmentally forward in Austin, Texas, which we will talk about later. But I find his story and his enthusiasm for life and taking new opportunities to be really thrilling. So stick around and come back for this conversation with entrepreneur, explorer, environmentalist John Hazelwood. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tiny Little Victories. You are listening to season three. Season three. I'm so excited about that. I have a great show for you today because I have somebody with us who I have known for over 10 years, I think, and his name is John Hazelwood. Hey, John.
Hey, Jennifer. Great to be here.
I'm so glad you're here because I'm going to tell a tiny little story on you and us. John and I met many years ago in Barcelona, and I've known him over the years when he was living in Bulgaria. And then he came back, he came to Texas, and we're going to get into that story, like how the heck he went back from Bulgaria to Texas. But the thing is, I didn't know John was living here. And somehow we reconnected again. And I was like, what are you doing in Texas? And he was like, what are you doing in Texas? And it turns out we both come back to the same state because there were some of our family roots that were here. But the whole time I knew you, John, in Bulgaria, I had no idea you were connected to Texas in any way. And I think that's so funny because you meet everybody abroad. We were all part of that like American mafia, abroad. And it's like, oh yeah, they're from Texas. But you don't know that till you get back here and you start talking to each other again.
Yeah, and just down the street from you.
I know, and I'm gonna come down there for the Texas Tribune Festival. So we'll have to have a little dinner or something at
Oh,
Arlo.
great.
I want to eat at Arlo Gray's. I want to eat at Kristen Kirsch's restaurant.
Oh, great, great. Well,
Yeah.
Austin is one of the best places in the country, I think, and it's growing. Uh, Still, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. As everybody knows, Elon is here, and my
I don't know
goodness.
if that's a good thing. Where's my boo sound? I don't know.
Well, it's nice actually that Austin is growing because a
Yeah.
lot of people a lot of old Austinites complain about it, how
Yeah.
it's changed and stuff. But now there's
Yeah.
actually a downtown that you can live, like
Yeah.
downtown, and it's you go downtown and you see Ladybird full of kayakers and stand-up paddle boards. I mean,
Yeah.
hundreds of people, and it's like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think I remember I didn't grow up in Texas, but I remember like all my cousins went to UT down there. We were little, we would go, and I always thought it was a fun, quirky little town. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about I want to go back to the beginning because your background story kind of reads like a Graham Greene novel. So I think it's interesting sort of where you came from and your parents. And I know that you wanted to tell a story about your father and your mother, who I find so interesting. But I also just want to put out there to you that one of the ways you describe yourself is an entrepreneur, explorer, and environmentalist. And when I was reading your bio, I started to think, listening to what your father had done, what your mother had done, all of these things really tie directly to them as well, in a way. So I think that your story stemming from who they were is quite interesting, knowing you today, like I know you. And just for the record, I think Dallas is better than Austin. So we can have a fight about that later.
Okay, well, no
um,
comparison.
that I know there's such different cities, right? Like they're completely different feelings and cities, and I find them remarkably different, and I think I ended up in the right city. But I like to make more of a rivalry out of it than it actually is. It's a little fun for me.
Yeah,
So
well,
let's go back to the beginning of your story, because you had talked to me a little bit about your father and what he did, and then you talked a lot about your mother and where she's from, because you're Greek, and your mother was Greek, right? And born in Egypt.
yeah, yeah. It all started. It all started back. My mother is puro Greek, as they say. She's third generation Greeks from Alexandria, Egypt. She speaks six, seven languages. All my family on that side speaks six, seven languages. Alexandria used to be uh, like the cosmopolitan
Yes.
city of the time, and before Nasser took over. So my mother, yeah, it all started. My mother went on vacation. She was 18. She went to Libya for a vacation, and my father was in Libya for work. He was a geophysicist, and they
Okay.
met and fell in love, and yeah, so it all started
So
in Libya.
your dad was an American, and he was a geophysicist for like a gas company, or I think you said Texaco. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, an oil company.
Hmm.
Um, he was from Austin. He was from Leander,
Okay,
and
there's your Austin tie. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
so this geophysicist Texan, was working in Libya and met your mom. That's an amazing story. And so, did they immediately came back to Austin, or did you live in Greece for a while?
Uh, but
Don't you cry for me.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then he came back to Austin, ran Goodwill back here in Austin, and then my
Okay.
other sister was born.
Okay.
So
Big
yeah, so we,
family.
we grew up in Texas in Austin, and he then we moved to Greece. We were
Okay, so
living
you
in
did get to
Rhodes,
Greece.
yeah, in Rhodes and Athens. 'Cause my mother, after Nasser took over, all the everybody left Alexandria, so all my family moved to
Okay.
Greece. So a couple
Mhm.
of aunts moved to Monaco. Their husbands worked for Onassis, who had an office in Monaco. And we after Greece, we moved to London. I was 6, and my father went back to work as a geophysicist. He was working for Mandrel Industries, a subsidiary of Texaco.
Okay.
He was working in Timbuktu in Mali.
I'm gonna stop you right there, because literally, does this read like a Graham Greene novel? Like, are you sure your dad didn't work for the State Department? I make that in quotes, State Department.
Yeah, no, it was Texaco for sure.
Okay, it's a good
And
cover.
unfortunately, no, he was in the Sahara desert. Him and a local driver from Mali. They
Hmm.
had a new Jeep. They didn't have a compass in it. They were following another Jeep. There were sandstorms. They
Oh my
lost the Jeep
gosh.
ahead of them, and by the book, my father wanted to go, like the book says, go to the highest dune.
Yeah.
And they had a plane that was down, and it needed some parts. By the time they got the parts in, they looked everywhere for him, of course, prior to that. But then when they got the plane fixed, they went out and found him and the local driver. They had both perished from dehydration.
Oh, John, that's a terrible story. I'm so sorry. How old were you when that happened?
I was 6.
You were 6.
I mean, we were living in London at the time, so my mother kind of didn't tell me and my younger sister exactly what had happened, and she came back to Austin for the funeral. with my older brother and sister. Then she came back to London and she told us. And so, I mean, yeah, I remember back then, of course, those memories.
Mm.
My grandfather, he's like, my mother wasn't sure whether to move to Athens, move to
Hmm.
Monaco, or move
Yeah.
to Austin. And
That's so three different places, completely different places. Austin, Monaco, or back to Athens.
Athens, yeah, yeah, and well, that's because we had relatives. Those were the three places, of
Yeah.
course. And
Yeah. That
so
makes sense.
my grandfather said, "Take your children to America,"
I
and
love
in that,
Is this also
um,
like a big fat Greek wedding thing? I feel like there's a big fat Greek wedding thing about to happen here.
yeah, yeah, it we moved back to Austin, and exactly, my mother opened a couple restaurants. She had
Okay.
the second restaurant on Sixth Street, which
Okay.
now is, called La Casbah. There was jazz on the weekdays and belly dancing on the weekends,
I love
and
this. I love this about you.
yeah, and then she after that we moved to Beeville, Texas for a couple of years, and then back to Austin. She opened up a travel agency.
And you had a travel organization with your startup, and that's one of the things when I began to think about your story, I was like, did your mother opening up that travel agency influence you to start that very successful business that you had in Bulgaria, Travel Store Maker?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, that whole thing evolved, of course, and um, we were. Uh, well, to my big fat Greek wedding, just like on there, all the kids were working in the restaurants and then in the travel agency, and
Yeah.
I went from working in my mother's travel agency to opening up a travel agency,
Yeah.
and and
Is that what
I
inspired you to create Travel Store Maker?
yeah, well, I ended up opening up one on Rio Grande. We were selling consolidator tickets that
That's a
were
long
like
time
really
ago
cheap
before.
tickets to
Yeah.
Europe, and so we had these ads running, these small block ads with 200 destinations, and the phones would ring off the wall, and we grew that agency, and then I opened up another one, and me and my brother. Who got into the sports business, and my brother met a guy, an Italian president of one of the Italian female basketball teams in Italy, in Milan, and he speaks
Yeah.
7 languages.
What
So
are all
that
these languages people are speaking? That's
yeah,
like the standard
yeah,
default
they're
number?
all
Seven
linguists.
languages.
Yeah, and
Okay, but the question is, you were in the travel business when it was nowhere near what it is today, where there wasn't the internet really, there was just phones, and so you were sort of at the I feel like your history is that you're sort of at the beginning dabbling in the things that you'd end up doing as an entrepreneur later, right? Because you did start Travel Store Maker. You were also a research analyst, and I think in what you've created now with your startup, you've done something else in terms of being an explorer in a way. Because Natura Reserve, your water-based glamping and the floating eco resorts, to me is about that explorer in you. I mean, you clearly you clearly love to explore, and that's one of the things I really admired about you is your exploration mode. And in that exploration mode, you actually rode your bike, right, from Sofia to London. Is that right? In the bio I saw that.
yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, what was that like?
In 2012, me and 11 Bulgarians. There was a guy that got hit by a car riding his bicycle, and it was his dream. And he almost died. His daughter lived in London, Katya, and that was the summer of 2011. A year later, she was like, "I'm so thankful that my father's alive." She wanted to make his dream come true. It was his dream to ride his bicycle to London, and so she organized a trip from Sofia to London. And when we started out from Sofia, there was like 100 people starting to ride, and it dwindled down. And by the time we left Bulgaria, we did a complete circle around Bulgaria, up the Danube, into Serbia, and so most of the people had left. It ended up being 11 of us. We rode our bicycles 55 days over 3,000 kilometers from Sofia to London, in over 13 countries. It was just an amazing trip. We arrived 2 days before the 2012 Olympics.
Wow, what
And
an arrival.
Yeah, so that was the kind of putting it together with the 2012 Olympics. And she had you know, a campaign, a PR campaign about safety, bicycle safety, of course, and through that whole 55 days. But it was an amazing trip. It's something that I'm so
Yeah, it
glad
sounds
that
like
I
a
did.
once in a lifetime opportunity to do something like that. And also, sort of, again, I've been coming back to this a lot, and a lot of people I've been talking to, but I, at the very beginning of the connectivity in the world, like 2012, we weren't exactly like as mobile as we were with mobile devices, was not really any social media. So you were really out there on your own making these trips, but it was really before all the phones became so predominant. And I always look back at any sort of movement or any sort of mobilization of people prior to that. And I think, see, we can live without all this. We can live without social media. We've done it before. We've created all these great experiences, and we didn't have all this stuff. Well,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make a short
Well,
pivot, go ahead.
actually, during that trip, I had, because I still had to run a company. I had my company, and we had like over, we had almost 130 people, and so I couldn't take off 55 days. I had a couple people we were filming. One guy was a filmmaker, and another guy that was helping
Yeah,
me.
but they weren't filming on their phones.
No, no, they had their
Yeah,
cameras and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, and
But
and
cameras when we
so
still had cameras, yes.
yeah, so I was able to work along the way those
Yeah.
55 days. So we were cycling about 5 hours a day on average.
But that's
So
kind of unheard of at the time to be able to work along the way. Like what kind of connection were you getting? Because phones were still pretty rough in 2012.
yeah, yeah, we were finding hot spots along the way
Oh,
wherever
okay.
we
Yeah.
were.
Then you would work.
Yeah, and
That's
we
very
still.
entrepreneur of you to be working all the time on a 55-day bike trek. What I really want to know is how did you get to Bulgaria? Like what was that jumping off point for you and why Bulgaria?
Well, so when we had the travel agency and then we got into the sports business,
Mhm.
we became the second largest agency for female basketball players. We had girls playing in about 25 countries, and they were all Americans. There wasn't a WNBA at the time. This was in the early 90s. And through that, my brother and I purchased a local soccer team, a semi pro soccer team here in Austin called the Austin Sockadillos, like soccer
That's
armadillos,
funny.
sockadillos.
Yeah, I
Uh,
get it. I
yeah,
put that together. And you know
yeah.
what's so interesting about soccer now, John, is that now you're seeing soccer here, especially in North Texas, with all the teams and the acquisitions that they've made with people. It's really like really becoming a big quite rave up here with soccer and the possibility of these semifinals with FIFA or FIFA. Never quite sure how to say that.
FIFA, yeah. And well, in
FIFA.
2026, they're going to have
Yeah,
the World Cup here in the States. It's going to be another amazing
exactly.
World Cup.
Exactly.
Well,
And Dan Hunt is trying to get some of that here in Dallas. And as you know, Dan Hunt is the son of Lamar Hunt, the oil baron who also owned the Kansas City Chiefs.
well, so that's interesting because Dallas, of course, was where Bulgaria played, and that's
Oh, really?
yeah. And so backtracking a little bit, we went from owning that semi-pro soccer team, the Sockadillos, and I ran that for a couple seasons, and then because we were in the soccer business, of course, and we were
Yeah.
also doing some things with players and stuff. And I spearheaded an effort to bring a World Cup team to Austin because Dallas was one of the venues where games were played. This was 1994.
Yeah,
Uh,
this is what I'm saying. Like with all the soccer rage right now, I mean, if I Google Austin Sockadillos, it's like really, it looks really dated. Like it has a lot of legacy.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's soccer now. We have an MLS team here, right? So
Oh my, see, it's
Sockadillos is
crazy.
kind of
Soccer's taking over.
yeah, yeah. And but yeah, so we went. I ended up spearheading an effort, and I went to New York where there was FIFA meetings, and then to Las Vegas for the World Cup draw, and I looked at all the teams that were going to play in Dallas. I contacted all of them, and I ended up recruiting the Bulgarian World Cup team. I actually represented them for the 10 days they came to Austin. They flew into Houston, they came to Austin 10 days. They had a couple exhibition
Very
games,
cool.
training. Then they went to Dallas, and I don't know if you remember, but they came in fourth place in the
Oh
World
no,
Cup.
I would never remember that. If you weren't a European, if you weren't like played in Europe during FIFA, and you weren't my French boyfriend, I never would have known.
Yeah. Well, Christos Stoichkov, who was the Golden Shoe player, he won the Golden Shoe Award, the top European player for multiple years. He played in Barcelona, and
Hmm.
so he was their leading scorer, and they beat Germany and Mexico. And yeah, they
Okay.
made it to the semifinals of the World Cup. Nobody believed that this small country with
Yeah.
8 million people would be able to make it to the semifinals. So
Yeah.
uh,
Well, how did you get to Bulgaria? Because I mean, it seems like you're very tight with Bulgaria and this type of, being instrumental in bringing the team here and all the things you've done with soccer and the Bulgarian team. How did you end up in Bulgaria?
Yeah, so after the World Cup, I took a team to a Bulgarian team. It was the top Bulgarian team to Japan for an exhibition game
But you were
against.
living in Texas when you were working with the Bulgaria team?
Yeah. I was living in
Okay.
Texas,
Okay.
and I was
And what was
because
the
we had a lot
connection?
of.
Like, why why Bulgaria? You feel like you're like dodging the question. Why Bulgaria? How did you get so involved when you didn't live there?
Well, again, there was a number of teams that were playing in Dallas, and I contacted all of them. So Bulgaria
Hmm.
was the one that decided that they would want to have their training camp in Austin. At the time, they were planning on having their
Okay.
training camp up in the Northeast, where the
Hmm.
weather's totally different, and it didn't
Yeah.
make any sense. So they liked the idea. They came to Austin. I represented them. I'm
Okay. So
and
the Bulgarian soccer team got you to Bulgaria.
yeah, exactly. That was
Okay. Woo!
something.
That's tough. You're making it hard as an interviewer. Yeah. Okay. That's crazy. I thought you had some like other interest for being in Bulgaria. I didn't realize that it was your sports representation that ended up tying you there. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah. And then
So
you
so
decided to move there. You decided to move there, I think in I can't remember. I can't keep up with your history. But what I guess for your journey in time, you stayed there for quite a long time, for about 15 years. And then you decided to come back to Texas. Why? What was the pivot for you to get back to Texas?
yeah. Well, so, I mean, the reason why I ended up going to Bulgaria was because while I was doing the sports business, I still had the travel agency, and I had a guy that was head of VRML technologies at IBM, a physics PhD. He was my co-founder. We co-founded what ended up being Travel Storemaker. Uh, our investor was a gentleman by the name of Admiral Bobby Inman, who used to ran the CIA, National Security Advisor for Ronald Reagan, and he was director of defense intelligence and a number of things. But he was one of the early investors, one of the first investors actually in Dell, Michael Dell, and Oracle back in the mid '80s, and so he was an angel investor. He invested in the company. He liked the idea that my co-founder Linus Vebstis. He worked nights and weekends, and we launched the first internet booking engine. You could make an airline reservation on the internet back in 1994. And not only was it an airline ticket, but it was a consolidator ticket to boot, which was we were pulling data from this database, and then it would go to the GDS, which is like WorldSpan or Sabre, to look for the class of service and make the booking. And so we launched that, and then went out to try and fundraise. Uh, Admiral Inman decided to invest, and that led me. It's like, well, the math and science level was really, very high, and the costs were very low. We ended up going to Sofia once we got funded a month later, and we were, the average salary at the time of everybody in the country was $150 a month, even the people that were, you know, physics PhDs. So we were tripling their salaries at $500 a month. We brought three guys back to Austin. We made offers to about 10. Three of them accepted. The other ones didn't want to quit their jobs, and go to the States for, who knows if they were, what was going to happen with the company. Didn't want to take the risk. So three guys came, went back to Bulgaria a few months later, and they were working out of the Bulgarian Academy of Science, where our director of technology, he was a physics PhD. He was working out of the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. And so it was these three guys back in Bulgaria. They had one window with a curtain down, and they were chain smokers sitting there writing code in this small room at the Bulgarian Academy of Science, just like you would think about Eastern Europe. And, some guys. And Nikolai had this long beard and kind of. So anyway, that's how it all started. We did travel for a period of time. Admiral Inman was on the board of 5 Fortune 100 companies at the same time, and he was like, John, I don't know much about travel. Threw out a couple ideas. One of them was Y2K, and in his world, he was SBC Communications and Xerox and a number of these big companies. He was on their boards, and he saw the Y2K coming, and so we kept a team of 15 working on the technology. We started a new company that was doing Y2K services, and we got into that, got into embedded systems, because we kind of got in a little late. We did it for a little bit over a year, 90, beginning of 99. We saw that, it wasn't going to be like everybody thought, where we had partnered with the EDS, and EDS's plan was, after the year 2000, they were going to buy all these computers that went down for pennies on the dollar and refurbish them with their coders, and then sell them back on the market. But nothing ever happened like what everybody thought that the world was going to crash at Y2K. So
Yeah.
anyway, we got out in 1999, got back into travel. We sold the first company to a company called IFAO. They bought the people. We had about 100 people. Basically, it was an acqui-hire. I got the code back, and then I took that code and that software, and I went out and got funded from WorldSpan, which is a competitor to Sabre, and went back to Bulgaria. That was in 2000, in 2001, and so that's where the new company, Travel Store Maker, started, and that went on for about 15 years.
Yeah.
So I was
Wow,
I was in
that's
Bulgaria.
quite a detailed journey.
Yeah, yeah, it
um,
was.
Well, I think that's great. I mean, I think I knew you when you were creating Travel Store Maker, and I think that was sort of at the forefront of what they were doing at the time. I mean, uh, there weren't a lot of people working in multiple countries at the same time that were startups, so I think you were definitely ahead of the pack on that. And so, one thing I wanted to get in before we close out the podcast is a little bit about what you've done. Now, you're still continuing to work with the Admiral. I love how you just call him like Admiral Inman. But in a really short, briefly, talk to me a little bit about Natura Reserve and what you've created, what you're creating in Austin. And he's still a part of that project. But what is it that you hope that will happen with Natura Reserve? And just so everybody knows, I'll tell you quickly that I call this sustainable water glamping, because it's a very like sustainable boat that kind of looks like a truncated Airstream to me. And you have it on Lake Travis, but it's sort of getting people outdoors, and it is sustainable. And this is your next project, and I'd love to hear a little bit before we go about what's happening with that and what you hope it will do, what behavior it will change with people.
Yeah, so I bought a houseboat, and I was living on the houseboat, and we started renting it, and then did a proof of concept for a little over 2 years, having this houseboat out on the lake, on Lake Travis. And it's kind of evolved to what Natura Reserve now we're launching is water-based glamping and floating eco resorts,
I love that
where
water-based glamping and eco resort. But it looks so it sounds so interesting. So what break it down for people really like quickly. What is it that they would be able to do on this eco resort
well,
at this eco?
we're taking two booming sectors. We're taking glamping, which is booming, and we're taking boat rentals, which is booming, and we're combining that
Yeah,
into a unique resort and event center for overnight stays and daytime events.
love that.
So
Love that.
we're yeah, so we're targeting right now. We're targeting universities. We're working on a couple projects with Texas A&M. We're looking at uh, trying to
Texas
launch.
A&M in Austin. How's that working out for you?
Yeah, well, I met with Chancellor John Sharp, and that he liked the idea. They have a new hospitality, hotel management, and tourism program that they launched this
Mm-hmm.
year, and the new Alpin Center that Beaver Alpin from Bucky's he donated 50 million last year, and the new hospitality program is going to be housed out of there.
What
So
at Texas A&M?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
up
okay.
in Bryan. Yeah.
Oh,
So we're looking at that project up doing something in Bryan, and we're looking at one in Corpus and potentially one in
okay.
Galveston at Texas A&M. But they have
Mhm.
152,000 students in their system.
Yeah.
So Texas A&M Corpus Christi isn't even they're not even Aggies. They're
Yeah, but
Islanders.
I'm trying to figure out what's the connection with universities? Why what's going to happen? Are you teaching something there or
Well, we're just partnering with them because what we're trying to do is leverage their what we can do with them and their students,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and what we can provide, like in Corpus Christi. They we don't even probably need to do any advertising. I mean, they own the land. Um,
Oh, wait, I see what you mean you're talking about putting these eco resorts in land around these places.
yes, yes. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Oh,
Exactly.
okay. That was missing. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I see from the website that you have the Airstream houseboat yachts in the water with decks connected to a really beautiful piece of land where there's like eco pods that you can glamp in. Is that about right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
initially, we're
Okay.
going to phase this in. So initially, it's land-based glamping,
Got it.
and then we phase in these what we call houseboat yachts.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like the way those look.
yeah. So it's kind of evolved, and now our initial launch is going to be using uh, boats on trailers that we're going to use as glamping for overnight stays. And
Hmm.
these boats are going to be classic historic boats, these beautiful wooden boats we're going to
Oh,
use
I
as
love
our
that.
structures.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot of these boats, there's no people to work on them anymore. And
Yeah.
they're going to they're basically being crushed. And so we want to revive them. And we think, we did some A/B testing with some folks, and the feedback that we got is like people would really liked those historic classic boats to overnight in on land. So we have boats on land, and then we're looking at using airstreams and putting them actually on on the water. So you
Mm.
have these uh,
Floating airstreams.
yeah, floating airstreams, right?
That's
So
cool.
you kind of have boats on land and airstreams on water. So it's kind of the
I love that.
reverse.
I love that. Boats on land, airstreams on water. You got to get Matthew McConaughey involved because he loves airstreams.
Uh huh. Well, what we
And
want to do
he's in
is,
Austin.
yeah, yeah. Well, you need to put me in contact with them.
You know,
Uh,
I interviewed him one time. He's amazing. So I don't think I still have that publicist connection, but I think he'd be a great person for this. He loves stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, think about a living floating boat museum, that you
I
can
love it.
go and stay at, and you can check out these beautiful old classic
Yeah.
boats. So
I think
that's
you
what
see a
we're.
lot of those up on the East Coast, like on Lake Tahoe. And my grandfather handmade boats when I was growing up, wooden boats, and they were so beautiful. My mother used to water ski behind them. They were just these beautiful classic boats. You see a lot of those in the Mediterranean. those beautiful wooden boats.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is,
Yeah.
there's
Lake
they
Travis, Mediterranean.
yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, like I said, there are people. There's not people around to work on them anymore. They're retiring, and
Hmm.
they a
I
lot of
love the
marine.
preservation. I love the preservation effect that you're trying to go for here. I think that's great.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an environmentalist, so our
Yeah,
whole thing is about conservation and preservation, and bringing these historic boats back to life.
I love
Uh,
it.
so we're excited. We think it's a good model. We're looking for
I do
partners.
too, and I think all of these things fit who you are: entrepreneur, explorer, and environmentalist. And so I want you to keep me up to date on when we can go look at these boats, because I think that preserving the past is really important. Conserving what we've created is so great, and I'm so happy that you're out there doing that. So thank you so much, John, for taking this time to come and share this story of your life and how you got to where you are.
Well, thank you so much, and uh, it's I love talking about what I'm doing in this because it is exciting. And if anybody's interested, we're looking to kind of you know looking for bodies of water where we
Yeah.
can launch these
Okay.
on.
Okay.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll put some I'll put some things in the notes where they can get in touch with you. You can go and look at Natura Reserve. It's www.naturareserve.com. And bodies of water. I've never had anybody ask for bodies of water, John. I absolutely love that. So I'll put all this in the notes, and if anybody's listening and they have some bodies of water that can take these floating historic boats, let's reach out to John and see if he can make that happen.
Waterfront property.
Love it. I love it.
Thank you, Jennifer.